Hey everyone, before we begin, I'd just like to disclaimer, I do have a short torso.
I'm actually way taller than it looks like.
Alex, can we zoom this up while I stand up?
That happens at Worlds all the time, man. People are like, Kieran, you're actually quite tall. Hey guys, it's your boys, the LSS Dev team, coming at you with an Outsiders Sealed Deck tutorial. I'm Jacob, the Pitch Deck Pearson, and today with me we have
Kieran, Mr. Classic McIntyre.
and Karol.
So today we're coming at you with some Sealed Deck assistance to help you decide on what hero you should be in the upcoming Season 6 of Skirmish, where Sealed Deck is available as a competitive format and maybe just give you the edge to win one of these absolutely gorgeous Razor's Edge playmats featuring some beautiful colors and Arachne, the Silent Assassin.
Vibrant.
Then on my left, we have this absolutely gorgeous zoneless Arachne Solitary Confinement mat. It looks absolutely gorgeous. The colors just really pop. And if you want to pick up one of these exclusive bad boys, you should become the people's champion at your local armory event, helping a local game store near you, really develop the community, and you might even get rewarded with one of these gorgeous playmats.
While Arachne prefers to be solitary, we like to play in the flesh.
So now you know about these gorgeous playmats and where to find them. Let's get into the meat and potatoes. What is Sealed Deck? Sealed Deck is a format where you take 6 packs of Flesh and Blood, in this case Outsiders, you crack them open, see what you get, pick one of 6 available heroes that are separated into 3 classes, and then you'll build a deck of at least 30 cards from your 6 booster pack.
What's special about Outsiders is it features hybrid cards, which means that there's cards that you can play in both Ranger and Assassin, or Assassin and Ninja. So yeah, an example of that is Death Touch. That is a great Ranger and Assassin hybrid card. And for example, something like Hurl in the Ninja and Assassin split.
Ideally, at the end of this video, our goal is that when you go to a Sealed Deck event, when you open up your 6 packs, you have a good idea of what your packs are telling you. What are the signposts for each hero, each class? What are you kind of looking for when you're looking to build this deck? Our main intention here with giving you these signposts is that so you're able to go to your skirmish season coming up and you're playing Sealed Deck, you want to take down your local rivals. We want to give you the tools to sit down and build the strongest deck possible so you can take away one of these beautiful playmats.
So each of us is going to take you through one of the 3 classes available in Outsiders. Me personally, I'm a bit of an Assassin stan, so I'll be looking after you for all your Azuri and Arachne needs. Where's my man Kieran over here?
Well, they don't call me Kadachi Kieran for nothing, so I'll be taking charge of the Ninja demonstration.
Yeah, and I'll take a look at the Rangers.
So with that being said, guys, why don't we get straight into the matter at hand, jump in, build a Sealed Deck using these beautiful looking 6 packs in front of us. Alright, so I know I teased you guys a little bit by mentioning we're going to get straight into it, but before we get to cracking packs, I'm just going to run you through the Assassin signpost for what you should be looking for if you're looking to build either Azuri or Arachne out of your Sealed Deck. So first I just want to start with some of the Arachne signposts. So we have Red Infect, or really any of the red token generators that making Blood Rot Pox, Frailty, or Inertia. All are very powerful, and some are a little bit more consistently powerful than others, such as the Infect. The Blood Rot Pox always says what it does on the tin, as opposed to Frailty and Inertia, which can sometimes not be overly relevant. So if you open a lot of these red stealth attacks, it could be a very strong sign that you should be more leaning towards Arachne Solitary Confinement rather than Azuri, just because you're able to play more than one of these like per turn and really sneak them in with the Spider's Bites. And then the Spike cards. All 3 of these very potent rares are very good at pushing through the on hits on these stealth cards, as well as creating a token themselves. And these can create huge tempo swings in limited games that can really push you home. They work so well in tandem with all of Arachne's toolkit. Even just 1 or 2 of these can make the difference of me wanting to be Arachne over the other Assassin, Azuri. Even things like Prowl, which doesn't necessarily have a debilitating on hit, but just allows you to push an extra break point for Arachne. Again, we're just getting back to the key point for Arachne, just those break points, pushing through those points of damage. And lastly, but not least, there's tricks like Razor's Edge or Short and Sharp. that are just good little tricky situations because your opponent doesn't know what you're coming in with because they have Go Again. That is the key difference between Arachne and Azuri. Azuri gets her hidden information through the stealth mechanic because she's able to bluff having some other tricky attack that is not what it says on the tin. Arachne does this by saying, hey, I have this attack here, you don't know what's coming after that. It could be worse, could be better for you, but you don't know. So it's really, very key to having a slight split between these attack reactions and the actual stealth attacks themselves. So you're really able to put your opponent in these spots where they don't know what the correct decision is. And that's how Arachne Solitary Confinement really preys on them. Now let's just go into a little bit of what makes Azuri tick. So the key thing for Azuri that Arachne doesn't really have is she makes fantastic use of blue and yellow stealth cards specifically because she's able to effectively use these cards as bluffs, right? You don't know if this is a blue isolate or maybe it's a red cut down to size like this. So they have to stop and think for a second, well, should I actually be blocking this or is he just trying to get me good, right? And one of the best ones to do this is isolate because it has dominate. This gets really tricky for the opponent because if you have an on hit like cut down to size or something that's even more devastating in a spot, they'll be sitting there thinking, oh man, I might not want to block this because he might just get the on hit anyway. Because a lot of the attack action cards in the set that cost 2 or less, when they happen, there's always going to be that question of how devastating is it actually going to be, right? So when that situation occurs, it's just so much value you're gaining from it because if they choose not to block your isolate because it has dominate, because they know that they can't block the full 6 on it, and then you slam down and cut down the size, well, they really have been cut down to size, haven't they? That 4 card hand suddenly goes to 3, they've taken 6. There's a huge tempo swing. And Azuri can make this happen with simple blues and yellows, which will obviously have an abundance of in sealed most of the time, which makes her a very resilient option. And there's also other tricky things you can do. One of my favorite plays in Limited with Azuri is switching in something like a Ravenous Revel because one of the keys of how Azuri's hero ability ticks is that you do not get attack triggers specifically when you switch in an attack like Ravenous Revel, which gets less power based on the pitch value of the card on top of your deck. But if you don't have to reveal a card, it's coming in for the full 5. And it has Go Again, meaning you can follow it up like just how Arachne does it and follow it up with another potentially devastating attack afterwards, which can be the difference to swing the tide. And then again, there's even more tricks you can do. Something like a Virulent Touch. When it's defended by a card from hand, it creates a Blood Rot Pox. If they're double blocking your stealth attack, you switch in this and they still are going to take some consequences from that. Very, very powerful. So when you're looking between these sets of cards, say we got something similar to this in your sealed deck, and you're like, should I be Arachne? Should I be Azuri? Azuri really likes having these powerful 2-cost attacks and things like Ravenous Revel and Virulent Touch, where she's able to be very, very tricky and the opponent's not quite knowing like what attack is coming in onto the combat chain. Whereas Arachne really needs these break points, gets from the Spider's Bite, making attack actions block for 2 or even 1 in some instance versus these 3 power stealth attacks or attack reactions to get even a little bit more tricky. So that's what I would say the key differences are, and we'll see what the other developers have to say about the other classes.
Alright everyone, it's your main man, Mr. Classic, aka Karol and Kieran, aka whatever you feel like calling me today. So I'm going to go through the 2 ninja classes that we have in Outsiders and just try and give you a few pointers on signpost cards to look for when you are looking to build your sealed deck. We have skirmish events coming up, so they're always a lot of fun. So let's just break right into it. So I'm going to start with what I feel is the core of any good ninja deck, and that is your 0-cost blue cards. So these are very important because they turn on your harmonized Kodachis. Means they have Go Again. So you want to be chipping in with your Kodachis. They're very annoying to block. And also in a pinch you can discard them to cast his hero ability if you decide to go that way. Additionally, in Benji as well, these perform an additional function of largely being unblockable. So I've laid them out here sort of roughly in power order. This does change on how your sealed pool is, of course, but often I feel at the top we have your gold standard, your blue cards, 0 cost, defends the 3. So that kind of that's a triple threat. It has everything you want. It can defend, it can pitch, and yeah, it's zero cost. So it doesn't look at Archies. So you have things like back heel kick, 1-2 punch. There's a few others in the set, things like recoil as well. Sort of one step down is we have what I see as more utility cards. These are also fantastic to have in any ninja deck. Things like your head jab. It's great in a pinch. You can use it to threaten a damage, or more in Benji, you can use it to trigger Katsu's hero ability. Also combos with various things. We have Hurl, and I think a lot of people by now after the pre-releases, there's probably a lot of people out there who have lost that final little damage from Hurl. So also great for just performing its function as a pitch card, Kadachi fuel, all that thing, and then pushing damage at the end. Be Like Water, functionally quite similar to head jab, just with an additional option of making it become sort of head jab, surging strike, twin twisters, so a lot of utility there. And then down the bottom, I've just included these ones to show that you're not always going to get everything you want in life, and that also applies to a sealed deck Flesh and Blood event. So sometimes while it would be nice to have all your resource cards just be the perfect, defend 3 utility cards, realistically, that's just not going to happen. So just make sure when you're going through your cards, you don't ignore cards like Feisty Locals Blue, Ravenous Rabble Blue, Seek Horizon Blue. There's a bunch of other ones. There's things like Blue Brush Off as well, for example, which by itself is kind of a terrible card. It's not great, but the thing is, you just want to have blue cards that cost 0 for the reasons I mentioned. The more of these that you have in your deck, the more consistent you're going to be able to attack with 2 Kadachis each turn, chipping your opponent away, and then have all those other benefits as well. Now let's move on and have a look at some signpost cards that might point you towards Benji in particular. So Benji, for those who don't know, is a young ninja hero, 4 intellect, 17 life. Benji's hero card reads that attack actions you control with 2 or less power cannot be defended by cards from hand. Additionally, the first time an attack action you control hits, your next attack this turn gains +1 power. Okay, so some of our more observant viewers may notice a bit of a pattern in a number of the cards I've pulled out for Benji here. They're all yellow. So what's going on? Why are we not playing the best versions of the red cards? Well, the key here is we want to make the best use of Benji's hero ability. So by that, we're focusing on these cards that often might be seen as sort of, chaff, I don't want them in my deck, but because of Benji's unique hero power, they're very good. So Deadly Duo, let's begin with that because that is certainly one of the strongest Benji cards. So Deadly Duo yellow, 1 cost, 2 attack, go again. When this hits, the next attack action card with 2 or less base power you play this combat chain gains +2. Using this, if you open with this into your opponent, you often want to be aware of things like, the Seeker's equipment and Blade Break, but assuming they are not able to defend this, this is effectively going to give your next attack action with 2 or less base power +3 if we consider the hero ability as well. So being able to open up with something like a Deadly Duo yellow into, let's just pick out another card like say a Head Jab yellow. Your Head Jab yellow is now coming in for 5 damage, and that's suddenly a very threatening card to deal with. The next card we're going to look at is Twin Twisters yellow. So Twin Twisters, again, 1 yellow, 1 cost, 2 power, go again, has 2 modes. The first mode is somewhat similar to Deadly Duo, reads, when this hits, your next attack this combat chain gains +1 power, and the second one is it just gains +1. Generally for Twin Twisters, if you're playing something like a Katsu deck, you want to be often going for that +1 to just present a little bit more damage. In Benji, you want to be choosing the first mode almost all of the time because you want to make sure you keep this card unblockable, and then your next attack that comes in is going to get +1 from your hero ability and +1 from the Twin Twisters effect. I haven't brought it out here, but Twin Twisters Blue is also very strong in Benji because then you can actually just choose the +1 as well and make it an unblockable 2 power attack. Moving down the list a little bit here, we've got our 0 cost premium cards, things like Be Like Water yellow and Head Jab yellow. So I've mentioned these previously in the resource base. These are excellent for both pitching to Kadachis and for pushing damage. Also Be Like Water is very nice because you can pretty much close to guarantee the on-hit effect here. And by doing that, it means if you have some of these follow-up combo cards, that card gains a lot of value. Similar to that one, we have Hurl down the bottom. Again, I've mentioned Hurl in the resource-based section, but the fact that this is unblockable, go again, 0 cost, just makes it great. And finally, I've pulled out one piece of equipment, and that's the Silken Gi. Silken Gi can be good in various classes, but the great thing about playing it in Benji is that the downside is actually an upside at times. So with Silken Gi, you're able to use cards, for example, if you had a Head Jab red or a Twin Twisters red or anything like that, You can use the Silken Key to give it -1, so you're taking full advantage of the hero ability. And then on top of that, you get a resource as well. Well, I mean, it costs 1 less resource to play, so you crack this, you have red from the Twisters, you say, I'll give it -1, I'm going to choose the second mode, and then you're coming in for 2 unblockable. What more could you want? Clearly there are a number of other cards that work well in Benji, but I just wanted to pull out a few to give you a foundation of what to look for. We'll cover off some of the generics that are very good in Benji as well, a little bit later. But for now, let's move on to, I'm a little bit biased, my personal favorite, Katsu. Okay, so now moving on to Katsu. One thing you will notice is that some of these cards are cards that have been mentioned earlier, but just red versions, just because of the nature of the hero, it's a little bit different. For Katsu, as far as your class cards go, what you really want to be seeing is some of these premium combo opener cards. So cards like Head Jab, for example, Twin Twisters Red, which is very powerful. You can push it up to 4 for that breakpoint, and also Surging Strike. One thing to mention is if you are playing Benji, it's not that you cannot play these cards. A number of these cards are also great to have in Benji. It's just that if your pool trends a bit more towards some of these powerful red and blues, you might want to go Katsu to use advantage of the hero ability. If you find yourself with quite a lot of yellow cards and maybe just a few reds, that might push you more towards Benji. Just an explanation for why we have some repeated cards there. There are a couple of rares in there. So in the Twin Twisters line, we have Spinning Wheel Kick Red. This is a rare, so it won't come up that often, but if you do find it, it's got that premium stat line of 1 cost, 4 power, go again. Anything that hits a breakpoint in this format is very nice, as is usually the case in Limited. Your breakpoints are very important as they can help you to trigger Katsu's hero ability to fetch the next piece in your combo line. Just pointing out here as well, 1-2 punch and recoil, both combo off the Head Jab. The Spinning Wheel Kick and Back Heel Kick, both combo off the Twin Twisters. And down the bottom, of course, we have the Surging Strike line. Surging Strike, red and yellow, both fantastic cards as they both attack, they attack for 4 and 5 respectively. Descendant Gust Wave, again, just by itself, this card is pretty good. At its worst, it's a 1 cost, 3 power, go again, and you really want to be going wide, and by that I mean playing multiple go again attacks across a combat chain in Katsu. But if you're fortunate enough to pick up the full set, this is amazing. You're going to be able to pitch 1 blue and go something like Kadachi into Surging Strike for 5, and then threaten to search up your Descendant if you don't have it, or then just play it naturally. Fantastic. Bonds of Ancestry. You can actually almost play any color of bonds depending on the makeup of your deck if you have enough Descendants and Surging Strikes. One thing to keep in mind with Bonds of Ancestry, if you do have this in the sealed pool, you want to try and, ideally if you can, get both sort of blue, yellow, and red, just multiple copies of combo cards. The reason for this is you want to have targets for your Bonds of Ancestry. So ideally, say if you've blocked with if you have blue, yellow, and red 1-2 punch, if you block with your yellow 1-2 punch earlier in the game, what this means is when you actually do get your combo line off, you do have a target to fetch up. And hey, might only be 3 damage, but 3 damage is 3 damage. It's pretty good. Finally, we have a couple more cards, Hurl and Be Like Water, which I mentioned previously in Benji. Again, these cards are fantastic in Katsu. They're fantastic in both ninjas across the board. But just wanted to pull out the red copies to show that you do really want the premium versions in this deck. Just one note before I move on to the generics, I have largely featured a lot of yellow cards, powerful attacks for Benji, and I've mentioned blue cards as resource cards for both the ninjas. Do not be afraid to play yellow versions of zero cost cards, particularly these ones that defend for 3, like 1-2 punch, recoil, back heel kick, because basically as long as your cards are allowing you to attack with a couple of Kadachis and discard the Katsu and they can defend, they're great. So if you go to your sealed deck and you're a little bit light on blues, don't be afraid to just pile in a bunch of yellows in there, they're great too. Alright, so finally moving on to some of the generics that can be played in both Benji and Katsu. We'll just have a look through them. So I pulled out some 0 cost, 1 cost, and 2 cost cards. In the 0 cost slots, we have cards like Feisty Locals and Ravenous Rabble. Generally, with these decks, you're playing them fairly aggressively. You play quite a tempo-based game plan, which means you want to be on the front foot. Feisty Locals is very good working with this game plan because it's a 0 cost card, which works in just nicely with how your deck goes in general. And also, if you're ahead on life, if you go something like Kadachi, Feisty Locals, you put them in a spot where you're actually, if they don't want to defend with any cards, you're happy just pushing through 3 damage for nothing. And if they want to defend with 1 card, they take 2. Or if they defend with 2 cards, then you're pretty happy you've stripped 2 cards with just a 0 cost. Ravenous Rabble, again, it's just a 0 cost to go again attack action card. Generally, depending on your deck makeup, you probably have a pretty good shot of it coming in for 4, which is a nice breakpoint. But it's not the end of the world if it comes in for 2 or 3. It doesn't feel great, but it's fine. Looking now down at the 1-cost cards, we have cards like Springload. Springload can be very strong because it allows you to pivot quite well at times. So for example, if your opponent comes in and with an attack that you need to defend, you're able to defend with 2 cards, and then with the last 2 cards in your hand, go Pitcher Blue, Kadachi, Springload for 5. Now you've presented 7 damage on 2 cards across 3 attacks, which is very nice. Looking for a scrap, it is a rare, so it won't come up that often. Both the yellow and red copies I think are very strong. The additional cost of banishing a card with 1 power from your graveyard, as we've looked at before, Katsu wants to play a lot of these cards anyway. Often a lot of your 0-cost attack action cards that you want for your Kadachi fuel will be 1 cost. So often you just have a bunch of these in the bin for free. If you don't, you can set this card and wait for 1 to come up. And yeah, sort of a 1-cost 5 attack with Go Again is fantastic. Freewheeling Renegades. Again, probably not a premium card, but it just lines up nicely with being able to pitch blue, Kadachi, and end with this. If your opponent is really wanting to hold on to like a good hand as well, this can be really punishing for them. 6 damage is no joke if they decide they don't want to defend. Moving down to the 2-cost cards, I actually think these are really powerful in Katsu, again, because it allows you to play off a 2-card hand really well. So being able to, worst case, you can just pitch a yellow and play one of these, and they're all pretty effective. Being able to pitch a blue and go Kadachi into Destructive Deliberation, cut down the size, wreak havoc is great. What these cards do is they help replace themselves, like Destructive Deliberation with the Ponder helps replace itself, cut down the size, forces interaction with your opponent. It's very difficult for them to just take the full 6 damage and discard a card, so often you're getting at least 1 card and 3 damage for them. If you get 2 cards out of them, it allows you to just maintain the tempo, which is often your core game plan. And Wreak Havoc, again, I mean, you're probably quite often, you're not really going to hit the lottery and destroy a defense reaction. You might sometimes if you're very fortunate. But again, it just fulfills that role of being able to be, say, pitch 1 card, attack you for 6. Now I'm stripping 2 cards to set up to allow me to go on the offensive next turn and not defend, or I'm pushing 6 damage, and I'm pretty happy with that as well. Finally, just looking at 1 offensive and 1 defensive card here. On our left, we have Short and Sharp. I think these are very powerful. It's pretty great. If you have a red one, I would always put it in the deck. I'd probably run 2 if I had 2. Even a yellow can be fine as well. The important thing about this card is not only can it target attack actions with 2 or less base power, gaining +3, which makes it fantastic in Benji, particularly because they can't defend these attacks, but also you can target daggers. Targeting daggers means it's just always going to be good in Katsu, because particularly if you think about it, I mean, sometimes you can be playing a sealed deck and you go, okay, I pitch a blue, attack with Kadachi. Quite often your opponent might take 1 of the 2 Kadachis to play a bit conservatively. If you play a Short and Sharp and start the game 4 life ahead, you are just gonna have a great time. Now, Peace of Mind, these can be pretty good because particularly with the format with things like Azalea, which dominates, you want to have the ability to defend with multiple cards from hand if possible, and Peace of Mind was a great way to get around that. The red copy I would probably just play most of the time regardless of whether I had a Seeker's Equipment or not, but if you do have blue and yellow copies, particularly the yellow, if you have 1 Seeker's Equipment, this is often a time when it's at its best because you're able to pitch a blue card, you pay 1 for your Seeker's Equipment opt, and then you use the other 2 resources to Peace of Mind, also giving you that Ponder token which helps to replace itself. Also, this might be something where you bring it in and out depending on what hero you're playing against. If you're playing against something like Benji, which has unblockable damage, Azalea with Dominate, then these cards become sort of better than they might otherwise be. Finally, I haven't pulled out sort of equipment necessarily for Katsu, but cards like Mask of Many Faces is fantastic for just helping to enable your combo lines. Any equipment with Blade Break is pretty good because there isn't a ton of it, so having this to be able to stop breakpoints, stop cards like Widowmaker for Rangers is always nice to have. I think that's pretty much it from me, so good luck everyone for your upcoming skirmish season. I hope this helped give you an introduction in how to build your sealed Katsu deck, and get out there, play in the flesh and blood with your friends, and hopefully take on one of these amazing playmats.
Alright, let's have a look at Ranger and Sealed. What cards are we looking for? And looking at the 2 Rangers, what both of them really want is, of course, arrows, as any good ranger would want. And the three kind of key arrows for both the heroes are Withering Shot, Infecting Shot, and Sedation Shot. Ideally, looking for the red versions of these cards is a good indicator of whether your sealed pool can support ranger or not, basically. And yeah, all three of them have their corresponding effects, and all three of them are just great in either ranger, whether it's Azalea or Riptide. Cards like Spire Sniping, this to me is more of an Azalea type card. I would prefer this card. This kind of card tells me if I have a lot of these, regardless of the pitch color, the ability to look at the top two cards of your deck enables your hero ability, which makes it a lot easier to dominate your arrows and trigger your opponents, which is, I think, the key to playing Azalea. Cards like Fletch a Red Tail. The red one I would play in both Azalea and Riptide. I think the crucial thing here about this card is, as a red, full power is what I'm kind of looking at when deciding on whether to play Azalea or not. Pumps in general are just a great way for Azalea to close out a game. The key to Azalea in general, in my opinion, is to have enough pumps and enough arrows so that you can set up those big dominator attacks. And I think that is something that is really important to actually winning with Azalea, being able to deal enough damage and sealed to your opponent. So the pumps like this one and Scout the Periphery and lace with Blood Rot, Inertia, and Frailty. These are the kinds of cards that I'm really looking out for when trying to pick whether I go Azalea or Riptide. Now, Scout of the Periphery is looking at the top card of your deck, enables you to set up those arrows, in a similar vein to Spire Sniping, whereas these two are mainly for the pump and pushing through damage. The aim counter ability of Fletcher Red Tail, Blue Tail, and Yellow Tail are really important for Riptide, because when you compare the two heroes, Azalea has an inbuilt evasive tool with the dominating arrows. Riptide cannot. It's really hard for Riptide to create evasion in his game plan. Basically, as Riptide, you are relying on these arrows to threaten your opponent enough. For example, with the Infecting Shot, if you use your bow to give this an aim counter, you're basically telling your opponent, give me 2 cards that defend for 3 or 3 cards, and you're trading. It's more about trading 1 card for 2 or 3 in this instance. Combining this kind of effect with something like a Fletch a Red Tail means that your opponent is so much harder for them to actually stop an attack. So I think Fletchers, especially the yellow and blue ones, for me, for Riptide, are great for the end game when you kind of pitch your yellow, pitch a blue, and then in the second cycle of your deck, you can set up an arrow with an aim counter and a yellow, a blue, to kind of reduce your opponent's ability to defend those, especially when they're really low on life. It can often mean that because there would also be in the second cycle of their deck, they can probably most likely have a lot of yellow and blues as well, and that can just be so punishing when your opponent is quite low on life. Looking at more kind of arrows, cards like Widowmaker, I would say are good in both ranges, but have a kind of better place in Azalea. Now, one thing to note about Widowmaker is your opponent can defend with an equipment. So this card is particularly good on the second cycle where you can dominate it. Your opponent is most likely won't have equipment left, and now this is kind of forcing, pushing through up 7 damage plus any pumps, which is quite a crucial way for Azalea to push damage. In Riptide it's okay as well because you're basically telling your opponent, give me 2 cards, and you're trading 1 card for 2, which is decent. Wayfinder's Crest. This card I would say is more of an Azalea type card. Again, because of that ability to defend with it, and you can look at the top of your deck and see if you have an arrow on top, and allows you to dominate your arrow with your hero ability. Now, this set also has traps. There are Ranger traps and Ranger Assassin traps. And I would say these are the kind of signal cards for Riptide. As you can see on Riptide's hero ability, there's an explicit kind of advantage to be gained from activating traps, pinging your opponent for 1 damage. But also when looking at Azalea, I would hesitate to actually play these, because if you're forced to blind spin with your hero ability and you hit one of those traps, it can really slow down your game. You can have 3 pumps in your hand, you play this, and all of a sudden you can't even use your bow to load an arrow into your arsenal. So this is something to note as an Azalea player, to be very wary of traps. Just be mindful of these if you do end up playing some in your deck. Now the Driftwood Quiver, it's especially good for heroes for Riptide. If you get stuck with a trap in your arsenal, you can have one-off effect to put on the bottom of your deck, and it frees your arsenal to continue loading arrows and shooting your opponent. Cards like Virulent Touch, you can run it in both Azalea and Riptide, but I would kind of prefer to run cards like this in Riptide because of the first hero ability, which allows you to play cards like Scout the Periphery. Then you can reload a card like this into your arsenal, and because this can be played from hand, it just makes it so much easier to play out. And also attacking for 7, kind of combining these 2 cards late game can have a devastating effect on your opponent when they're still forced to defend this, but now they get a blood right as well. Death Touch, this card is as a bomb. I feel like it's just such a great rate. 1 cost, 6 power, similar to Virulent Touch. It's powerful enough to play in Azalea and kind of set up on the previous turn, but it does kind of push me more towards Riptide as well. And now looking at some generics, cards like Seeker's Leggings or all kinds of Seeker's equipment, in a similar vein to Wayfinder's Crest, this is just amazing at opting by basically looking at the top card of your deck and seeing if you do have an arrow, and it continues the synergy with Azalea's hero ability, which lets you dominate arrows. Come to Fight, this card works in all colors in both Azalea and Riptide. I think in Azalea you really want these pumps to push damage, same with Scout and all these. And for Riptide as well, it lets you load up a card into your arsenal as you play this. So you can have synergies with cards like these 2 or these 2. Just pitch a yellow, play Come to Fight, put this into your arsenal, and then come in for 8, which is just so devastating for your opponent. Now when looking at generics such as Destructive Deliberation, we're gonna have these kind of random generics that pop up in our pools. Cards like this might look pretty average. They pitch for yellow, they only defend for 2, but as a Riptide, every card counts in your deck, and I think it's important to play cards like this and even pitch them early to kind of shoot arrows, try to trade some damage, try to get favorable card trades. By that I mean, if you shoot, like I said before, if you shoot this arrow and your opponent blocks with 2 cards, you go straight in 1 card for 2. In similar vein, these kinds of cards are actually okay in Riptide for late game, because you can play this out, and if your opponent is low enough, they're going to be forced to defend with multiple cards, trading 2 cards, 1 card for 2, basically. But cards like Ravenous Rabble, for example, this is synergy with both heroes. This is a great tool to see what's on top of your deck. Do you have an arrow? Or play this, and since you played a card from your hand, it lets you reload with Riptide and really utilize that bow's second ability of putting an encounter on your arrow. So for example, you can play this as Riptide, put this into your arsenal face down, pay 1 resource to put an aim counter on it, then shoot it away. So this kind of goes for both, I would say. Cards like Seek the Horizon, in my opinion, are kind of the glue of what can make a good Azalea deck, because this hero ability allows you to just straight up put a card on top of your deck, setting up that dominated arrow. So basically, Ravenous Rebel and Seek Horizon are the 2 generics that I would look out for Azalea. And just with rough numbers, I think for Riptide, I would only play Riptide if I either have insane red cards and can play a very aggressive game with cards like Rabble, Death Touch, Virulent Touch. Mainly looking at the red versions of these cards, you know, doing something like a 2-card hand Scout into Virulent Touch. You can play a very aggressive Riptide, or focusing on these arrows and kind of trying to play as many playable cards in your deck and trying to play a more grindy fatigue game by trying to trade 2-for-1s with cards like these. For that strategy, I would recommend only going into it if you have between 40 to 45 cards that you can actually play, because as I said, because of your lack of evasion, it's actually quite easy to get fatigued as Ranger in general. In a similar vein, overall when looking at Azalea, I would say she's one of the hardest heroes to play in Sealed. So I'd only recommend looking at Azalea if you're quite versed with how her hero ability operates, if you're quite familiar with all these cards and how they work, Spire Sniping, these kinds of cards. And I would try to kind of really focus on these pumps when you're looking at your sealed pool, because you need to combine strong pumps like this, for example, with strong arrows, and using your quiver whenever you can to just add a little bit of extra damage here and there to push those dominated attacks. And if you think about it, you know, your opponent's going to have between 17 to 20 life, and that usually means you need to shoot 3 to 5 kind of big dominated arrows to get through, and your opponent can have defense reactions in their arsenal. They can have equipment that helps them defend, or cards like Peace of Mind to kind of stop those dominated attacks. So I would only focus in Azalea if there's a huge amount of these very powerful pump cards and some of these kind of premium red arrows. And with Azalea, I wouldn't say you need to kind of have 40 to 45 playables like in Riptide. I think you can play like a clean 30 even if it's just gas, and you know that you can shoot those few dominated arrows. But I would still kind of play it cautiously and probably play a few more, kind of 30 to 35 cards for this. So yeah, here's your 2 Ranger heroes and outsiders. Hope you enjoy this, and yeah, can't wait to have a look at the sealed pool.
Alright, it's time for the juice, guys. Let's get cracking. 2 packs each, boys. Alright, pick your poison.
I'll grab these.
Okay, I'll grab a
Get my boy.
Riptide.
And another Riptide. Alright, let's get cracking. Hopefully my girl Azuria's gotta give me the juice.
Alright, let's see.
Okay, let's see if I can remember how to open these Japanese packs. We notably do have the Japanese print, not the Belgian print. Can I get the good corner? This is so sad.
I wonder if we like free.
Can we like...
Cut. You got this.
We can edit this.
Alright, there we go. Satisfying crack into the pack. I know some of you are probably cringing at how I opened this pack, but that's alright. Oh, look at that. Starting off with the correct token, my man. Arachne Solitary Confinement. But we'll get to that later. So we got a red Spire Sniping. Not
Great
bad.
Azalea card.
Yeah, great Azalea card. We love to see it. Seek Horizon. Oh.
Another great Azalea card.
Oh, blue head jab.
Back.
Now we're talking.
Yellow prow. Oh man, it's gonna be good, man. Blue Twin Twister. Got some feisty locals. My man Karol's favorite card in the format.
Yeah.
Oh, red Infecting Shot. Damn, these are some good Ranger cards. And we got a red Peace in Mind. Fantastic generic. I think we will pretty much all be playing that one. Freewheeling Renegades. Oh, nice. Our first hybrid card. The Mask of Malicious Manifestations. I'm really proud of myself for saying that one.
Yeah, well done.
All right. Pretty solid Blade Break 1 equipment that has some upside of deep breaking you. So, not a bad one. Put that over here. Ooh, Inertia Trap. One of the more spicy traps. Just being able to really easily block an attack and it's pretty much always turned on, but for the most part. So we'll put that there. Ooh, nice boulder trap. Solid Ranger.
Is that Riptide calling? Multiple traps.
Yeah,
Okay.
2 red arrows, 2 traps.
Yeah.
For the first pack.
Yeah, Karol's smiling over there. Alright, red backstab. Oh, double red stealth cards. Nice.
Cards.
Wow, really powerful packs for Ranger and Assassin. Arachne's looking on the table, and then we just got some token. Alright guys, let's get cracking into the second pack. Zuri did us pretty good, but let's see if Arachne can even beat it. Ooh,
okay.
Yeah, alright, now we're cooking with some gas. Red Ravenous Rabble.
Now we're playing Flesh and Blood.
Now we're playing Flesh and Blood. Another Twin Twisters.
Good benchy stuff coming along.
Yep.
Brush Off. A great sideboard card. I would not typically play it like all the time, but it's good versus your benchy, you know. Freewheeling Renegades. Blue Ice.
Yeah, another red.
Ooh, another red arrow.
Very nice.
Horizon.
Red Seek Horizon. Man, these packs are bangers. We got a nice equipment option for Ninja over here. Mask of Many Faces. Descending Gust Wave. And another Assassin Ranger hybrid card. Virulent Touch. Very nice. Ooh, Sneak Attack. Not the color I like, but hey, it's still good.
It still comes up with 6.
Oh yeah, look at
First
that.
Majestic. Nice.
First Majestic. Oh, double Majestic pack even. We got a foil Nerve Scale. Oh, God, that looks gorgeous. Not my favorite card in Limited, but it is still very pretty. Put that in the LSS bar, but Melting Point. That's pretty hot.
There's a lot of
Good-
good Ranger cards.
Yeah, that's
Good
a
way-
lot of rated Ranger
Good way to
cards.
deal with any pesky Kadachis out there.
Yeah,
Melting
for
point.
sure. Gorgeous.
Alright, let's see if we can continue this Ranger train going.
Yeah, I haven't seen a bad Ranger card yet.
Oh, here's a good sign. Azalea. Let's get rid of those. Okay, another Gust Wave. Prowl, Infecting Shot. One of my
feisty
faves.
locals.
Yeah.
Rabble, Peace of Mind. Okay.
It's a double up.
Assassin Ranger. And yeah. Ooh, another trap. And a Death Touch, that's pretty good.
Razor's Edge.
This card is pretty sweet with those red stealth attacks and humble.
Awesome.
Okay, next pack.
This guy is not messing around. Looking through those bags.
Yeah, Spire Sniping. Ooh,
Oh my
this
God,
is-
this Ranger pull, man.
Yeah, these are just amazing in Azalea. So.
Don't worry, our viewers. They'll try push us to Ranger, and I'll be waving the flag for a good Benji here.
Oh, I read Surging.
Oh, okay.
There you
Alright,
go.
looking up.
Fisticuffs.
Amazing equipment.
Yep.
Our
Fantastic.
first hybrid ninja and assassin card. Looking for a scrap infectious hosts and blues here. They're alright, nothing amazing. But this I'm just gonna have a look at this again. Look at all these powerful red cards here.
Oh, that's absolutely gorgeous.
Alright, Kieran, let's see what you got.
Okay, let's go. Let's
Alright.
see what we have in my packs. Azalea token. Interesting. Okay, with a yellow.
Another
Crazy.
Rabble.
Another-
Pretty good.
Oh, Spire Sniping Blue. These are actually very good as well. Oh, Red Twin Twisters.
Now he's getting the juice.
Yeah, now we're looking at Katsu Omnibus.
Nah.
Destructive Deliberations to date, obviously great Azuri card.
Yeah, let's go. Cut down the size.
That's great.
I feel this is good in both.
Another red arrow.
Let's go, baby! Okay, let's focus on the red arrow. Cut down the size though, great in Ninja as well, I feel, or Azuri. With a reshot
Or
red. Or Riptide. We have a Brush Off Red, again, probably more of a sideboard card for things like Benji, maybe Azalea. Silken Gi. Pretty good equipment.
Yeah, we're not playing that.
We'll just see about that. Another trap. What's that? Session Blood Rot trap.
That's a hybrid one.
Yeah, I knew that. just checking.
Another
Oh, we got another
Death
Death
Touch.
Touch. Okay.
Oh wow. It's
amazing.
Death Touch, and then we have a Sneak Attack and Falcon Wing Yellow. I guess that's fine, and we will put this with our Assassin
That
cards.
ninja pile is looking pretty slim there.
Yeah, now I know Karol is going through the Ranger ones, but we have a little look here. I think we've got, got all 3 starters in red. We got 2 Descendants, some Many Faces.
How many zero costs?
We got a couple of Zero Cost Blues. Yeah, it's looking pretty premium. Okay, and next pack.
Last pack magic.
Last pack magic. Here comes the legendary.
Oh my god.
Another red
Don't
arrow.
just throw it around though. Let's get rid of the tokens. Okay, so here we have Sedation Shot, I suppose is okay. It's fantastic blue arrow, red arrow here. Blue Descendant Gust Wave.
I must have.
Prowl.
Don't play this guy.
Prowl, which is, very nice. Spring Load. Ooh,
Even the
perfect.
blues, even the blues on these kind of ailment arrows, on the affliction arrows, I should say, are good because even if you chuck an aim counter on this, it's a break point of 4.
Yeah,
so
that's a
1
break
for
point.
4. Still
And you get-
good.
Yeah.
And Be Like Water Yellow, exciting veggie card. We have the Brush Off, Picture Stick Adachi.
Double Red Razor's Edge, let's go!
Okay.
Yeah, Ratney's calling my name.
Scout the Periphery, again,
Great
another...
Azalea and Riptide card.
Yep, a fantastic card. Being able to look at the top card of Target Heroes deck, you can actually look at your opponents if you already know through Opt as well, but also just very nice to set up. Fleetfoot Sandals. Now,
That's generic. I know it's probably Ranger only. But
okay,
let's
let's put it back. Now, Fleetfoot Sandals, I'm actually kind of glad we picked this one up because there is a fun little interaction that my man Jacob over here got someone with. So, Sneak Attack, you can just play this out, and then, I'm just coming in for 1. Okay, they've got no resources up.
Yeah.
And then you activate Fleetfoot Sandals, attack reaction, it suddenly turns on, it's coming on for 5.
Hell yeah.
And just on that note, one of my favorite interactions with this is
Whoa,
as
whoa, whoa.
Azuri.
I mean, who's opening the pack yet?
Is with cards like the blue stealth cards, because you can play this as Azuri as just like a 1 cost, and 1 power, and obviously as Azuri they might kind of pure ability something in. So if this gets double blocked, you put the sandals and then you play a big attack.
Yeah.
That's one.
Yeah,
Then you're gaming.
Yeah.
Frailty Trap, I feel this is...
Frailty, let's go!
We'll come back to this. Spike with Frailty, let's go!
Looking for a scrap, let's go!
So, Spike with Frailty, an amazing card. Like, any of the spikes really, anything that's giving your stealth attacks +3 are just fantastic.
Yeah,
You can get,
awesome.
you can get double debuffs on them. Afflictions, it's awesome. Looking for a scrap, amazing card. So this is going to go in multiple decks. I feel this goes in Ninja, it goes in Assassins.
Yeah, mainly Ninja and Assassin. There's
Yeah.
actually, I don't think there's a single other
Feisty
than
locals.
Falcon Wing. Falcon Wing Blue.
Blue Falcon Wing is the only card that you can.
And the class itself. There are a couple of generics, but
Yeah.
it's pretty hard to get the density you need.
And let's not forget about Yellow Toxicity. So this is probably more looking at kind of an Azalea card,
Azalea, yeah.
I would say.
Arachne can make decent use out of it.
Oh, there is a blue Falcon Wing.
Oh.
We're looking for a scrap.
This is what we call a combo.
Synergy.
Okay, so those are our 6 packs. I guess it's time to build up a deck.
Yeah.
Have a little bit of drama, a little bit of controversy. See which I think we're looking strongly Benji here, right?
Yeah, so I think what we do is we just get rid of this straight away. Look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 playables, maybe 3.
You know what they say, Karol? It's quality, not quantity. You know what I'm
We're
saying?
actually in C on it. Quantity. But
alright, let's just get down to business and start building this deck.
okay, so I just wanted to point out like a quick tried and true trick is to just look at these piles and comparing the amount of cards in each pile kind of gives you a very kind of rule of thumb indication on what kind of direction you should take. As we can see, as I previously mentioned, the Ninja pile there's not that many cards in it.
Premium.
There are some don't get me wrong, cards like Twin Twisters and Surging Strike are quite premium for Ninja, but there just isn't enough cards there in my opinion to
It feels
take
like
into
it
consideration.
feels like you're filling up the deck with your impactful generics, but you're
Yeah.
probably better off putting those strong generics into another shell.
Exactly. Like we were saying, we've got so many payoffs for Assassin and Ranger here. It's just
and
really
yeah,
starting putting us in a direction.
what this tells me is just like, especially since on a skirmish, you want to utilize your time wisely. I think being able to just kind of, take one option out very early, I think it's could save you quite a bit of time on deck building as well.
For sure.
And yeah, we kind of sorted these out, but look at these arrows. These are insane.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And Spire sniping, like for Azalea, amazing. Melting Point, it'll be so spicy getting someone, like a Uzuri or a Katsune destroying their dagger.
Exactly.
But,
I mean, when it works against 4 out of the 6 heroes, it's
yeah,
pretty nice.
exactly. And it's just so strong, and even against other ranges.
I mean, that's a 1/4. Like, that's a 1/4. Pumps are really, really premium for Ranger Reform, especially in sealed. Like, having that access to like really strong pumps like that just let you like push the damage you need to end the games. So.
Yeah, exactly. But in saying that, our assassin cards are quite powerful as well, especially these attack reactions.
Yeah, the fact that we have 3 red attack reactions, a spike, and double red Razor's Edge, that is so premium. Like, so. Like, you will not see this in every sealed pool. Like, it's so much potential at ending the game.
And then really strong blues. We have, the small synergies with sandals.
And fisticuffs as well, don't forget that.
Fisticuffs, yeah.
I guess one thing I was just going to say is one thing to keep an eye out for is the spikes. Of course, they're like premium amazing cards. Would you say they're generally a little bit better in something like Arachne rather than Azuri?
Absolutely, 100%. Just big, naturally, Arachne is the predator on asking, do I have something coming after this? Whereas Azuri typically is like, this is the thing, is it going to be good or not? So attack reactions in Arachne really give you that ability to kind of switch it up,
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. And with something like these sandals, like also you can do some plays with all these blues attack for one with Uzuri, where you kind of threatening something and your opponent, calls your bluff, and then you can use something like this Razor's Edge, give a go again, play something else. Like, there's a lot of kind of little tricks you can do with these. And I think as a general rule of thumb, I'm looking at reds when considering Arachne and blues when considering Uzuri. But we've got a bit of a mix of both, so that's quite interesting.
Yeah, it's very balanced.
Yeah. And also in these hybrid cards, you have all these
traps, man.
A lot of traps and these amazing death touch cards, which is just so powerful. Toxicity, great card for Azalea. Virulent touch, I think pretty good for Riptide and some of the assassins as well. So these are just really powerful.
I just wanted to highlight really quickly, I know we mentioned it before, but the Frailty Trap in particular, just one thing to note, it is an attack with Go Again, not attack action. So it's, again, like, I know a lot of people have encountered things like Azuri playing sealed. When you're playing against things like Kadachis or Spider's Bites, this can be really cool because they invest like 2 resources into attacking with the dagger. You defend it with Frailty Trap, give them a Frailty. Suddenly their daggers are turned off the whole turn. Their arsenal card they might play their Frailty. So
100%. And also you have the crazy blow up potential. Like, short and sharp is a real attack reaction in the format. And if they attack with the dagger, you have a Frailty Trap and arsenal ready for them. They short and sharp and boom! Look, it blocks not only the 3, but the 1 on the original because of the Frailty as well. Turns off the rest of their daggers for a turn. It's just really, really good.
Also, our friend the old Blood Rot trap triggering on attack reactions. I will tell the viewers that James White himself got me with the exact thing. I went, Azuri, attack for 1, he goes no blocks, a short and sharp red. And he's like, oh, actually, okay, I'll defend for 3, give you a Blood Rot. So,
and you die.
When you're the man,
you're the man. There's a big difference between giving a Blood Rot to your opponent on your turn and then them having the whole turn to kind of play with it and then playing it at the very end of their turn where they're just like, can't really pay for it.
And there might be a card you bring in and out depending on matchup. If you're playing into an assassin, you probably are playing the Blood Rot Trap. If you're playing against a Ninja Ranger, maybe not necessarily.
I mean, in sealed in general though, like, just defense reactions are just really powerful.
Very good.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
It's very hard to turn it down.
And let's have a look at these. I kind of split these into kind of like a defensive generics maybe. Some of these bigger attacks, feisty locals, like,
it's just amazing. Like, if you see a red one of these, it should be in your sealed deck, no matter what you're playing. Just a fantastic card.
Yeah. So like these, for me, when I look at these kinds of cards, these are just great. And things like, the ninjas, but also Azuri and for me, Riptide. Like I much rather play cards like these in Riptide than Azalea, because I think with Azalea you just really want to focus on the big arrow hits. But yeah, these on the other hand, great Azalea cards. Yeah. So let's have a kind of general look at these generics, because I think generics are actually a strong indicator of, for example, for us, whether we go Assassin or Ranger, and if we do go either one, which hero ultimately we're going to pick.
Absolutely.
Are there any kind of like picks for you guys that stand out?
I mean, Scout with Periphery is to start off with very, very powerfully spec towards the Ranger side of things. It's actually surprisingly hard to consistently keep an attack in your arsenal in case you draw this card. And you obviously can't really put that card in your arsenal unless you're Riptide. Because you have very, very few ways of getting things back into your arsenal when that's the case. So that really does point in that direction a little bit. One thing I want to note, that we do have 3 Ravenous Ravels. We've got a red, a yellow, and a blue Ravenous Ravel. Very, very good cards for not only Azuri being able to cheat the attacking cost of the Ravenous Ravel, but also just if your opponent is trying to play pile and really take you to fatigue, Ravenous Rabble is one of the best ways in the format at common to get around people trying to completely like block you out. They don't want to attack you, they just want to sit there and just fiddle around all game and just watch your deck slowly deck out. But the trick is, if you can pitch these Ravenous Ravels over the course of the game and you draw them in your last hand cycle, if you have no cards in your deck, what are you revealing, Karol?
Nothing.
Yeah, exactly. So
And, how much power would a yellow Ravenous Rabble come for?
Yeah, exactly. It comes in for the full 4.
Yeah, sort of like little mini last ditch in a way.
Yeah, exactly. If anyone remembers that banger from Welcome to Raid.
Yeah. So I think it's yellows in general, like I specifically for what you're talking about, I really like the yellows because they're quite easy to pitch to something like a dagger or like a pump and an arrow or a bow and an arrow. And kind of save them for later. With the red ones, I feel like, you know, if you're a hardcore player, you better be pitching those red Ravels.
We pitch that piercing for nothing, man.
I was just going to say quickly, you asking what might point us in direction. I feel looking for a scrap probably points us a little bit more towards Assassin because we have cards like Sedate, Wither, Infect, blue. But like you mentioned, we actually do have the 1 blue Falcon Wing. So if we did decide to go in the direction of Ranger, I would actually still play this in the deck because I aim to just sort of pitch it away early or Arsenal until you have that ability to pay off with the go again. And then it's up because often Rangers, you don't think of them as go wide hero. So you can really catch someone out by going, okay, I'll start my turn by coming for 5 go again. And it's like, oh, do I block this or do I wait for the on hit? And also just the other one is Seek the Horizon here. So this is just, I feel, a generally good card across all 3 classes. Just coming in as a 0/4 with no go again is completely fine. It also has a fun little effect with Azalea, of course, because you can come in with Seek Horizon, and the cost of putting a card on top is actually kind of a benefit. So you have a card in Arsenal, you Seek Horizon, put your best arrow on top, and then spin to win. Oh, look what's on top. It's a red infecting shot, dominate!
And we have a yellow one as well, which is pretty sweet. And I think we can call it a day and pick Azalea.
I do think the other card, which we should include, is probably the cut down to size.
Put these over here.
I think the cut down to size yellow and potentially the humble yellow are cards that we should consider.
Yeah, for sure. Like Azuri really likes the 2-cost cards in general. They don't always have to be reds. Like even stuff like the blue Destructive Deliberation. If we are like clogged up with too many blues in our hands, we can just cheat this in. We still get an arsenal. We just save this stealth card for later as well. That's a really important part of playing Azuri actually, is that those attacks do come back around. So if you attack with a red stealth attack and you cheat in something worse because they overblocked it, you get to save that banger for later.
Yeah, and on that note, I just wanted to point something out, which is this card here for Azuri. Isolate specifically, and like points me can do some really cool things with Azuri because in sealed, the games can go quite late. Every card matters, and having this form of evasion, similarly to Azalea, cheating cards like these, like cut down to size, even blue. With a blue or a yellow humble or cut down to size, not only lets you push through damage, but you get this isolate back on the bottom of your deck, which is something to keep in note because then you can pitch some of these cards, maybe like a feisty locals, and save it for late game where a dominated attack matters the most. And I think that is something to remember. Even you can base your whole deck strategy around one blue isolate.
Yeah,
and I think it's really cool.
For sure, and like Karol mentioned, it's important to sort of keep these things in mind, because often when you're playing sealed, like, you know, you draw 3 blue cards and a red card, and your opponent attacks you for 6, you're like, okay, I'll just defend with 2 blues. Just keep in mind, something like blue isolate, probably almost consider that as like a premium red card in a way, right? It's just that good in the Azuri deck.
Yeah, I honestly have to say that with all these generics and all these equipment, we are actually quite spoiled for choice here. There's paths to play Assassin or Ranger, like both of them are kind of
Very fluid.
looking very good. And yeah, what do you guys reckon? Because yeah, let's have a look at the equipment.
Yeah.
Equipment can be a good indicator also to
What I might
you have.
What I might do with your vein is we decided we're probably not playing
Yeah.
Ninja. We'll remove these ones.
Yeah.
I think the Nerf Scalpel we're probably not playing.
Mhm.
We're inspired by Equipment Suite, Ninja equipment. So we have 50 cuffs, the legs. We have a double up on Mask of Malicious Manifestation, so we'll move one of those away. So then that leaves us with Silken Gi and Mask of Malicious Manifestations. Man, that's a mouthful, isn't it?
I said I was pretty proud of getting that the first time.
I
Yeah.
will say I feel the Silken Gi is maybe a little bit better in Ranger in my mind.
I would say that regardless of the path we take, there's a sweet little card called Death Touch that has great synergy with this. In my opinion, especially this yellow one, doing something like defending with your whole hand and then, you know, having this in arsenal means you can just play this out, or even just pitch, you know, attack with a couple of daggers and play this out is amazing. Yeah, it's really tough.
Yeah, like even looking at our equipment again, it's like this whole suite is like going to be identical for whether we play Assassin or Ranger, so we can't really use it as a perfect play. I mean, Fleetfoot Sandals I feel is a lot better in Assassin than it is in Ranger.
Yeah.
Like we can actually get some real value from that, specifically in Assassin. But 100% is very, very close. But I mean, like the Seal Core is really what you'd want to see at your skirmish. Like I'd be really happy. We even have so many sideboard options. If we look over here for Prevention, I believe we also have another like blue Peace of Mind as well. All these cards are very, very good versus something like Benji or versus Azalea, where they're going to come through. You're not necessarily going to be able to block with Enhance. You need to be able to race them, or you need some sort of secondary prevention. Now we haven't got any of the equipment, none of the Seeker set. The Seeker set, when you have Peace of Minds, they pair really nicely. So while you might not normally consider playing like something like a blue Peace of Minds, it can be quite awkward. If you have 1 or 2 pieces of Seekers, it can really help smooth it out, because you get to pitch a blue, you get to use your Seeker's equipment to prevent a breakpoint here, and then you get to Peace of Mind like their main threat, and it just works out really, really nice that one. Especially in something like Azalea, where you really don't care what you're getting in your arsenal.
Definitely, and it's just good against decks like good against Azalea with the Dominate, good against Benji with the unblockable damage. Maybe what we should do is just, maybe we'll start with Assassin and just see what our Assassin deck would look like if we build it up. So we can just maybe put some of the Ranger cards to one side for a moment and just build it up quickly.
It's a great tool actually. If you have the time when you're building Sealed Deck, as if you just draft up a copy. If you're like this and you've got a tough choice between 2 strong options, like maybe just draft up the deck for yourself. And just have a look through. Do I have like a good blue to red ratio? Does it look like I have enough threats? Like where do I think, like do I have a good assortment of attack reactions, like defensive options? And then just making your choice there. It can help you a little bit if you have the time.
Yeah. Okay, so if we considered, should we just start with what we would look in our Arachne deck, maybe?
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Let's
get cracking.
Should we take a second, clean up our piles, then we'll get into making the deck?
Yeah, that's good. All right. Shall we start off with Assassin, boys? Oh man, I love me some good attack reactions, spike with frailty. So what I'm going to go through is I'm just going to sort the cards that I really want to play and just place them out in front here, and then we'll move to like the kind of the sideboard and like the maybes.
We put Jake in the middle because much like me, he enjoys being center of attention.
Oh,
so.
Absolutely, mate. Here we go. We got nice selection of reds here. All these reds are very, very premium, very, very good assassin cards. So Yellow Withers, still solid. Yellow Prowl, Yellow Sneak Attack. A little bit of a sneaky trick you can pull with this one as well. Like as you notice, like we talked previously, or my man Mr. Classic over here mentioned that you can Fleetfoot Sandals a blue sneak attack, but you can actually do some sneaky stuff with the yellow one as well.
Right, but how? It has 2 power.
Oh, funny that. So what you can actually do is that you can attack with a Spider's Bite on Chainlink 1, which is a 1 power dagger, and then you can attack with Sneak Attack yellow on Chainlink 2. And you can activate Fleetfoot Sandals to get the dagger go again.
On the previous chain
On
link.
the previous chain link. So if you'll notice, the Fleetfoot Sandals actually says target attack with 1 or less space power gains go again. So that Spider's Bite for 1 is still technically an attack with 1 or less space power. Even though the go again is not relevant at all to our situation, it's still something we can use to kind of cheekily get in there with sneak attack. So still a very good card, even though it's a yellow 2 power.
I don't like that. I love it.
And we'll move on to some of the blues. Blue Sneak Attack we've already talked about. Just a great card in general for both Azuri and Arachne, just because of our equipment suite. Remember guys, these cards don't really work so well in Arachne unless you have some of the trickier attack reactions. We didn't pull it in our sealed pool, but the other mask, the other hybrid mask for Assassin Ninja, actually has an attack reaction that says when a dagger hits, you get to draw a card, and then put a card back. And what you can do with that as well, you don't have to use the actual effect if all you're looking for is the activation of the attack reaction. Don't get caught up in trying to get necessarily value from the attack. Like if I'm attacking with a sneak attack and like I've got my head there and I can push for lethal with it, like it's worth doing. And then we'll go through the rest of the blues. So we got Sedate, Prowl, Infect, second Prowl, and the one that you were mentioning earlier, Karol, Blue Isolate. Very important to have isolates for Azuri because they just create like such strong in-game scenarios, especially the blue one. It's just easy to pitch, it's easy to play, just super.
The cool thing in our pool here as well, of course, as you mentioned, Jake, we've got the Spike with Frailty, 2 Razor's Edge. I mean, Isolate just as an in-game tool potentially as well. Like if you have a few reactors that Isolate, Scalp Dominate, it's coming in for 1. Just kidding, it's coming in for 7.
Yeah, it's very, very powerful. And then moving on to some of the hybrid cards. Now, you might not think that the traps are necessarily that great in something like Arachne, but these effects are just so swingy. Like they can create like such amazing board states. Like you might not necessarily want to play them into every matchup, but still like 0-3 defense reactions are a real thing in this format that can like really help you turn the tide. The fact that it lets you just arsenal a card to stop an on-hit on the previous turn while keeping cards in hand is just really, really important for Flesh and Blood, especially in Limited. Like if we look back at some of the previous Limited formats, defense reactions have always been like an absolute premium, I feel.
Yep.
So Frailty Trap, very good. Blood Rot Trap, great in the mirror match if we wanted to play against other assassins. And then we have Inertia Trap. These are very easy to turn on in this format. I feel like there's a lot of buffs, you know, Sneak Attack, they Fisticuffs their attack, or the Riptide plays a pump, Azalea plays a pump.
Things like
all the aim counters give +1.
Yep, but things like Benji, if you attack your next attack getting more.
Super easy to turn on, and Inertia can really break down their turn when you give it to them on your turn. I think Karol was talking about it earlier, how like giving Blood Rot Trap on your turn versus their turn matters a ton. Well, same thing with Inertia. Like if they're planning on arsenaling a big threat or a trap to make a power play on the follow through, it can just really break a game open.
Absolutely. Or if they've been, you know, siloing a great card in Arsenal for multiple turns and they're like, next turn's the turn? No, it's not.
Yep, absolutely. Toxicity. Now, this is not something I would normally want in Assassin. Can be good in Arachne, specifically in our case because we have so many good attack reactions, but really you shouldn't be playing this if you're Azuri. It's very hard to get the value.
You're toxic.
I love it. Alright, Death Touch, as Karol's mentioned before, just fantastic card in general for both Assassin and Ranger. Virulent Touch, this is more of a Azuri card than as Arachne. It can be a little bit awkward as Arachne, but it is what it is. Blue Death Touch, again, just a fantastic card. Now moving into some of the more generic stuff, we have the Peace of Mind. This card I might consider playing just because it's a very like potent effect. It's almost like a pseudo defense reaction in a way. It does take a card, but it gives you a card back on the other side. So it's basically a 0 for 4, right?
Close enough.
Close enough. Brush Off is a little bit too finicky sometimes for my liking, for me to say it's a slam playable, so we'll
Yep.
just put this off to the side for now. Same with yellow peace of mind, yellow brush off, blue peace of mind, blue brush off. Very, very good sideboard options. Again, we'll just want to reinforce that, but
Yep.
definitely not something that we're always looking for. Red cut down to side, freewheeling renegades. Big reds are great in almost everything, to be completely honest with you. These are just the things that you want when you don't have the best class option. They're good. They're decent in Arachne because you go against South Attack and then you get them with like the nice on hit at the end. And obviously they're amazing in Missouri because you just cheat them in for free. Awesome. All right, and then looking at the rest of these, the Springload blue filler. Again, it's like if you need blues, these cards are fine. They block for 2. It's whatever. Yellow Humble. Okay in Missouri. Might consider it in Arachne, but it's kind of like on the middling tier of cards. Yellow cut down to size the same. Yellow plunge. I don't really like this card as much in Assassin. The red one's okay filler, but the yellow just doesn't feel great either way. Blue Hill, a fantastic card at finishing the game. When your opponent's at 1, and you got a dagger. Well, you just throw it at them and hope for the best. You know, it can get blown out, which is like something to realize with things like brush off and whatnot. But definitely a solid way to end the game. Blue Infectious Heart, it's just some filler. Blue looking for a scrap. We only want 1 in Ranger, but I'll take a second one as Assassin for sure. Yellow Feisty Locals ×2. These cards are like fine if you need to like fill out like a couple extra slots in your deck. They do the job nicely. They push a couple of points of damage, or they pay for a dagger. Decent.
Maybe play 1, maybe play 2.
Yeah, exactly. Really looking for a scrap. Absolute banger. An Assassin. If you got all these 1 power stealth cards, it's just
100%
awesome.
in the
Just
deck.
Slam.
Very
100%. Red Feisty Locals, great card. Carol's favorite, as we've talked about previously. Red Seek Horizon, I mean, we're not Ranger, but most of the time I just want this as a 0 for 4. Don't care about the text box, but if you go dagger into stealth attack into 0 for 4, just a good play. Ravenous Rabble, I think we've been through that. We know where we're at with this card. Red Scarlet Periphery, again, like if I'm lacking on power and I feel like I need more power to close the games out, like I will put this in my Assassin decks, but in general, I think specifically with our sealed pool, I don't think we really need the extra push, and it's just kind of inconsistent. So cut it. Yellow Seek Horizon, just some more filler, and obviously the other Rebels. What a deck.
Jacob, with Assassin, would you go Arachne or Azuri in this one?
It's a pretty close call, to be honest. I wouldn't fault you for taking one way or the other. In fact, normally I'm a bit of an Azuri simp, I'm not gonna lie. I really enjoy the dynamic gameplay that she offers. But I think this is actually one of the few cases where I could be swayed over to Arachne. We have all the premium tools that Arachne needs to like push over the edge for the game. Like these Rager edges are kind of hard to, and the spike are kind of hard to utilize properly as Azuri because you can't swap in a non-stealth attack and then pump it. They specifically have to pump the stealth attack, which is sometimes fine, but we get the most payoff for these cards in Arachne, and we have such a solid density of them. Like 3 is a big deal. Like 3 is an absolutely mammoth amount for this kind of deck, and we can still utilize the sneak attacks like we talked before. We can still utilize like the trap specifically, just being able to like keep a 3-card hand that involves like a dagger, and then we have like 2 pseudo threats after the dagger, and we use our 4th card to block with it being a trap and getting a nice payoff for it. It's really strong, so I feel like I would want to be Arachne.
Final answer?
I think that's going to be my final answer, guys. I think I want to be Arachne Solitary Confinement.
Ranger Danger! What are we doing, Carol?
Sweet. So first thing to look when kind of deciding on whether I'm going to play Riptide or Azalea is just have a quick look at the pumps. So we have, we've covered these super strong arrows, and we do have these Spire Snipings. But if you look at the pumps themselves, it's not looking too great. We have a lot of traps here, which can get quite clunky with Azalea, and we do have a toxicity, and I believe that's it for the
Where are
all
the
the
pumps?
pumps.
Yeah,
the
just
pumps.
something to note as well. Like when you spin in a trap with Azalea's hero ability, it feels really bad. Like it can be just lights out for your
That's
turn.
no. So just based on that, I would just straight up cut Azalea from the equation, and let's focus on Riptide. So we have traps. Let's just kind of look at all the arrows. I'll just chuck them all in one kind of pile here. And Because Riptide is so focused on kind of grinding your opponent out, or just kind of like pushing these very efficient attacks, so we basically have very limited access to evasion. So this is why I'm kind of, when I'm looking, cards like Toxicity and no evasion, it's super easy to defend. I'll just cut that straight away.
Yeah.
These any pumps great basically to kind of push damage, and with these, you're playing sealed, every card matters, so any cards like these, I would just chuck them right in. We talked about the anti-fatigue strategy of Rabbles, Seek Horizons. You can put a card on top, but this enables same with Rabbles, enables your hero ability to put something like these into your arsenal and then flip them with your bow to gain advantage. And
importantly, things like Death Touch as well, right?
Yeah. Like something that Karol was talking about before with like how it kind of grinds really hard when you're playing Riptide is because like your arrows have devastating on hits. Like typically your opponent really doesn't want to let those hit, and there's so many 2 defense cards, especially in generic and ninja, that it can really quickly grind them down. Even if you're just attacking for 6 a turn, like if they have to block the on hit, there's 3 cards that they're trading for your 1 card.
Yeah, and look at that. Look at all these traps. You just wanna be pinging your opponent. You've got Death Touches. This is insane card. Virulent Touch, great finisher at the very end of the game if you pitch it with something like a Scout of Periphery. So
I'm just going to ask you, sorry, quickly go before we move on.
Yeah.
Do you feel as well, I know we were talking about the traps earlier, the ease of getting them to like trigger, basically, particularly for Riptide, where you want to be able to sort of start pinging them for damage. Do you feel the traps we have here, I feel like we've got pretty good ones for being able to get activated.
Absolutely, and it's a good spread. We have, all the different kind of hybrid traps. We have the boulder trap as well. But all of these, if you think about it, the kind of inertia trap and boulder trap have the same activation. Like, there's so many ways that these can be activated, like Jacob mentioned before. And to be honest, what I'm looking for in Riptide, is all these playables. I want to be chucking all of these into my deck. And the cards that I would kind of, start to cut, because you still want to play the cards that, you have offensive potential, all these defend for 3, you have some of the best defensive cards in the game, but you just want to trim down on all these kinds of, stuff like Blue Brush Off, Blue Spring Load. I feel like these are the kind of cards that can get a bit clunky, and you're not necessarily wanting to pitch them for late in the game. You want to be pitching these kinds of cards that, they give you that pitch value, but at the same time, push damage in the very late game stages of the game.
I feel like Freewheeling Renegades, for example, is a good one where if they don't want to defend, it's coming for 4 damage in the late game.
Absolutely. The Rabbles, the Feisty Locals. I'm not sure about this one. I'll probably be cutting this one because we have such limited access to
1 power. Yeah, we really want our singular 1 power to be on the red looking for a scrap. We don't want to waste it on the board.
And stuff like Brush Offs, these cards are kind of, they're good, but they're very situational. If you're playing against something like Assassin, or potentially, I don't know, some ninjas as well, where you just kind of very safe to play these, you can get blown out playing these, which can be an issue. But if it's, it's something like Uzuri, they're spinning something in, you defend it for 3, a red brush off could be good. So, these are potentially playable. Yeah. What I am looking at is these Peace of Minds, these big attacks that, trade those cards, 1 card for 2 cards, that kind of thing. And if these Peace of Minds are great against evasive decks like Azalea, like Benji, potentially Arachne even with defense reactions and attack reactions. So these are also a consideration, but this is probably what I'd be looking at as for the Riptide.
Okay, so we've gone through the card pools, we've kind of built out both our decks, and we've seen the pros and cons of each. So Jacob, we're going to turn to you and say, you've seen the power of Riptide with a pretty strong pool, you've built out the Arachne deck. Would you like to change your decision from Arachne to play Riptide? Or are you sticking with the
Hell no, I'm sticking with the Assassin. There's very, very few seal pools where you get to experience multiple red attack reactions with the powerful like red stealth cards to back it up. We even have like blue prowls and stuff. Like the blues really like lean me towards Arachne. Specifically, we didn't get too many isolates. We didn't get too many of the powerful like Azuri payoffs. I really want to jam Arachne here. It's just got so much late game like closing potential. It's just super solid. But you know what? I'm not going to fault Karol for being a Ranger stand over there. The deck does look pretty solid if you want to take the Riptide option, but I'm 100% keeping on the
Okay, the man's confident. He's sticking with Arachne. Now, Karol, you've heard Jacob make his pitch.
Yeah.
Now, after seeing you've laid out the Riptide deck, would you like to change your decision and play Arachne?
Definitely not.
But you don't got any props.
There's so many like powerful cards in this Riptide deck, and I just love sitting there, chucking an arrow, stopping everything that my opponent's doing, and just slowly grinding them down with Riptide. So I'm definitely gonna go for that.
Picking out with Travis then. Well, I guess we've got a tie.
Yeah, what
so
do
the
you think, Kieran?
the casting vote goes to me, Mr. Close.
I'm gonna play cards.
We're playing Benji. I think you've both made great arguments. I feel honestly both these decks actually feel quite powerful. I feel it's a definitely above average seal pool all in all. Okay, I've heard you both, and I feel there's some great Arachne cards here. I really like the fact we got Spike with Frailty and double Short and Sharp. Other thing.
Razor's Edge, not Short and Sharp.
Oh, Razor's Edge. My apologies. But I think in saying that, there's just something about Riptide. I feel it's such a good Riptide pool because you have 4 traps as well, 4 or 5 traps. There's 6 traps, and we've got all
6 life you're taking from me.
and then we've got all the big red arrows. So I think I'm gonna have to go with my old Session Blood co-host Karol, and I'm gonna say we're playing Riptide, and we're taking it all the way to the final.
Yeah, and we're taking all of those playables, and yeah, as you wanted to mention that, Jacob, like every card counts, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like it really does matter, making sure that you're getting the most use of every card in your deck. Like, you will most likely see the second cycle, sometimes even the third cycle in this format.
Mm-hmm.
And like there will be people in Seal specifically like trying to get you to the point of fatigue. So sometimes it can be like really nice if you have the option of playing like a few extra cards that aren't too bad. Stuff like yellow, like Feisty Locals can like be okay if you want to kind of pad out your deck a little bit. I'm normally like pretty happy playing like anywhere between 34 to like 38 cards in sealed if I can get it. Maybe a little bit more, specifically if I'm playing Riptide. He really does utilize those extra cards a bit better because he doesn't have a weapon. Right? It's the natural inherent downside of Ranger is that you don't have a weapon that attacks. So you're a little bit more prone to that sort of thing.
Absolutely. So I think Jacob said it correct there. Well, you probably don't want to fall into the trap of playing every single card just for the sake of it, to have this massive pile, because you might die with 15 cards left in the deck. It is important to assess your hero, maybe even depending on the matchup who you're playing against. If you're playing against Benji, I probably don't want 39 cards in my deck.
To be honest, versus Benji, it's a great point. It's like, I'm probably trimming down to 30 if I'm playing Arachne.
So just keep these things in mind. I think this has been a good sealed pool to illustrate, like there's multiple different lanes you can go into, you can play different heroes, different classes within those. So I think we just want to finish up by saying, get out there to your skirmish, to your LGS, play some skirmishes, get out there to play armories and drafts and everything like that. I think we all think this is one of our favorite limited sets ever.
100%.
So get out there and play in the flesh and blood. 100% great games. Thank you very much for tuning in, and good luck everyone.